Okay. Now we're going to talk about modulation. The MiniBrute has a fair amount of modulation, and it's awesome. I'm sorry to keep saying this, but really, I'm having a great time. This thing is a lot of fun, and it does a lot of stuff. Okay, as you can see, there is a pitch wheel. Pitch wheel has a bend range that goes from this to this. Sounds like almost an octave, and maybe in later versions, keep in mind this is a prototype, it'll go perfect octave. So that's really exciting. Also, there is the, let's see, what's the next thing we should cover? How about if we cover the mod wheel, but I'm going to start off with vibrato. Basically, they've called it vibrato, but really they've given you two LFOs. That's what's going on here. You have two LFOs. You have the main LFO, which we'll get to, which is nice. And then this vibrato, which is a lesser LFO, which is also nice. And what else do you need? Okay, so right now I have the mod wheel, that's what this is, set to vibrato. So let's mess around a little bit with vibrato. In the middle we have the sine wave. Then we have a up square wave and a down square wave. And you have a rate control. That's almost in the audio range, if it isn't in the audio range. And, you know, the rate control. So yeah, you have this vibrato, which is a nice little basic LFO. The mod wheel can also control the cutoff. Pretty standard behavior. Also, it can control LFO amount. And I guess this is as good a time as any to dive into this LFO, which is super awesome. Here's why. You have this LFO. First of all, it allows you to direct it to a variety of places. Number one, pulse width modulation on the square wave in the oscillator, the square wave oscillator. You can control the pulse width with the LFO, which is a really necessary thing. Then you can direct it to pitch. We have a knob here to direct it to pitch plus and minus. You can direct the LFO to the filter plus and minus, and then to the amp plus and minus. This is like a full featured LFO. You can direct the LFO waveform to modulate the oscillators, the pitch of the oscillator. Okay, you can direct the LFO to modulate the waveform of two parts of the oscillator, to the pitch of the oscillator, to the filter cutoff point of the filter, or to the amp in positive or negative ways. So yeah, this is a full featured LFO. Let's mess around with some of this. Okay, first, pulse width modulation and metallizer. That's us messing with the pulse width. Right now we're using the sine wave to control the pulse width. Setting the pulse width to different settings will generate different results with the LFO, obviously. Not necessarily obviously, but it should be obvious. Okay, so that's cool. And that's just a sine wave. Let's hear what happens to the pulse width modulation with a triangle wave. Slightly different than the sine wave. Let's try the ramp wave. Square wave. The LFO on the MiniBrute also has random frequencies, kind of a sample and hold. So what we have right here is sample and hold controlling your pulse width on the square wave in the oscillator. Awesome. That's a great thing to have. And then they do this thing that is kind of really super awesome, which is a softened sample and hold, which you can do with like a lag processor on a modular synthesizer. They're taking the steps, that the voltage sampling that is sample and hold, and they're putting it through a lag processor so it becomes humps instead of steps. So here's what it sounds like. So right now the LFO is randomly and softly varying the wave shape of the square wave. Come on. And that's not just pulse width modulation. Let's get into the triangle and use the metalizer to see how it sounds with that. That's the softened sample and hold. Here's the hard sample and hold. Let me interrupt right now to say we can sync this with the arpeggiator. Okay, just think on that for a minute. Here's just a square wave modulation source. Ramp. Whoever had a triangle wave that sounded like that? Let's bring in the sub oscillator for fun. Obviously, you know, and we've only dealt with one knob of this LFO that deals only with waveforms. So you can imagine right now what kind of crazy stuff we can expect with everything. You know, we can be using this to control pitch. Let's just do that for right now. Let's get out of this awesome metalizer, get back into pitch. Remember, we're still controlling this from the modulation wheel. Who doesn't love pitch, sample, and hold? Well, let's listen to soft pitch, sample, and hold. And remember, we can be doing this stuff in negative, which sounds almost the same as positive in that particular instance, but still. Also, you know, that's just the pitch and the waveform of the oscillator. We can also manipulate the filter cutoff point. Sine wave. Let's listen to triangle wave. A little more pointed. Sawtooth. Square. Sample and hold. And then the soft sample and hold. We bring in the resonance on that Steiner Parker filter and you get that wobbly weirdness that's awesome. And also, all of those things could also be controlling the amp, which is the volume. And we haven't even really touched, we haven't touched the glide, so let's talk about that. The glide, which is portamento. Pretty standard synthesizer sound. Also, there's aftertouch. Psh, whatever. Oh yeah, aftertouch. Forgot to mention that. You can set that to vibrato, which means that the vibrato setting will control the aftertouch. What you can't see is how hard I'm pressing the key, but I'll try and demonstrate. You can't see that. I'll try it again. So you can do expressive playing like this. How hard you press on the key affects how deep the vibrato is affecting the pitch. Which lends itself to very expressive playing. You can also set the aftertouch to the cutoff. I am controlling the filter cutoff point with how hard I am pressing the key. That is really cool. I don't know if you've ever played an aftertouch synth. I mean, most of you, I'm sure, have played modern synths. But that's really expressive. You can do a lot of stuff with that. And then again, you mix that with the brute factor.
Wow.
settings. The hard thing about this demo is going to be putting all this together. All of these different permutations and functionalities overlapping in all of the many ways they can. They've really given you a tremendous amount of options.